find out, that is a coordinate geometry. Now what is actually the coordinate means? In today's life we have seen that to find any location or to find any location while driving, we use the GPS. So it is very easy to find out any location. But if you find out the exact location on our earth, then it is impossible without the coordinate. Means if you give the coordinates of any place, then you can find that place or you can imagine that place within a second. But without the coordinate, it is quite impossible to find out the place. So to make the maps or to find out the places or to make the things easier according to the axis or the to find out the special places, the coordinate is used. Now we are going to study the coordinate geometry. Now the basic of the coordinate geometry is what? The basic of the coordinate geometry is the axis, origin and the quadrant. Axis, origin and the quadrant. Now what is the axis? Now axis nothing but these two lines. These two lines are the axis. Now what is this? Is the x-axis and this is the y-axis. So if we have to make the definition of the x-axis, then what is the x-axis? It is the horizontal number line on the plane. That is the y-axis and the x-axis are present on the same plane because this is the two-dimensional coordinates. If you have to find the three-dimensional coordinates, then you have to find this image in a 3D. That is the extra axis, that is the z-axis is intersect through this origin. That's the third ordinate, means that is the 3D ordinates. But this is the x-axis and the y-axis are on the same plane. That is the two-dimensional. This is a two-dimensional, means only the two axes are present. Now what is the axis then? Is the x-axis then the horizontal line present on the plane. That horizontal which line? There is a number line present on the plane is the x-axis. Now what is the y-axis then? The perpendicular line which intersect the x-axis at the zero origin. Okay, now on the x-axis we have seen that there is a positive number on the right side and the negative number on the left side. Also on the y-axis there are the positive numbers on the upward side and the negative numbers on the downward side. Now what is the origin? The point at which the x-axis and the y-axis meets is nothing but the origin. Okay. Now quadrants. Now what is the quadrant sense? Now consider this is the whole plane. Now we have drawn the x-axis and the y-axis. Now because of these two axes, this plane or this, consider this board as the one single plane. When we draw the y-axis and the x-axis, then there are become the 4. 1, 2, 3 and the 4. 4 parts of this board. So these parts is we called as quadrant. That's the quadrant first, quadrant second, quadrant third and the quadrant fourth. Means these two lines intersect at the origin and makes this board or the divides this plane or divides this board in the 4 parts, and these parts we can say that there is a quadrant. Now how many quadrants are present then in the plane? That is 4. Now what is the origin? That is the x-axis when intersect the y-axis at a certain point, where the coordinates, we will see the coordinates later, but just remember that the x-axis and y-axis intersect at a certain point. This point is nothing but the origin. What is the axis? That is the number line. One is perpendicular and one is a horizontal. That is the axis. So this is the 3 basic for the to learn or understand the coordination geometry. Now let's move towards this axis. Now if we have to find, for example, if I give this is the point, this is the point, and I said this, if I have to say to find this point without the coordination, then it is quite impossible for me to say or to give the information for the exact location for this point. But this point is given here, then just by telling you the simple coordinates, you can easily find out the where is the point is. Now let's see how it is possible. Now in the first quadrant there are the, when the this is the two axis, so the two coordinates are given, that is the x coordinate and the y coordinate. What is the x coordinate and y coordinate? The coordinate, because this is the 2 axis, therefore you will get the 2 coordinates. This is our point. Okay, we have to find this point by using over the coordinates. Now if I have to show you if I have to tell the exact location or the information about this point, then without this coordination geometry or without this 2 axis it is impossible, but by using the 2 axis geometry we will find how to find out that the exact location of the point. Now you have been given that is the 2 coordinates, that is the x coordinate and the y coordinate. Okay, so this is x coordinate and this is y coordinate. In the bracket it is given, for example, this is the 3 and this is the 2. These are the coordinate. Now what is meant by 3 and 2? We know that x means the first number is nothing but the x coordinate and the y means the second number is nothing but the y coordinate. Now you have given that this point have the coordinate, that is a 3 and 3. So you have given the exact location or the information about this point, that is this point is located at the coordination, that's or the coordinate 3 3. Then you can easily find that point, that's the 3 and 3. This is the x coordinate and this is the y coordinate. Now find out the x coordinate, that is this is a +3, this is the x coordinate. Now find where is the 3 on this number line. Here is the 3, this is a positive 3, here is a 3 and here is a 3, but this is a negative and this is positive. We have to find only the positive, so this is a positive 3. So this will be this point or the given point we have to find is present at any of this line. Okay, if we draw this line, then this point may be present at any of this line, but we have given the y coordinate, that the y coordinate is also 3. That's why we have taken the y coordinate, that is 3 and the -3, but we have given the +3 coordinate. So what this is the +3 coordinate. When this line is also drawn, then we find that when the intersection of these 2 coordinates meet, there is the point. So here we can easily find out the location or the exact space of this point. Means if the coordinate is given, then you can easily find out that's where the point is or where the location is. Now whether the point is present in the first quadrant or the second quadrant or the third quadrant or the fourth quadrant, it can be known or it can be identified only by using the sign of the coordinates. Here in the first quadrant the x-axis is present, that is only the positive numbers of the x-axis are present, and here the positive number of the y-axis are present. So in the first quadrant, if anything or any point is present in the first quadrant, then the sign of the x coordinate and the y coordinates becomes the ++. So the sign convention for the first coordinate is plus and the plus. Now let's move towards the second quadrant. Now in the second quadrant, the negative number or the negative number line of the x-axis is present and which is attached with the positive line of the y-axis. So first of all, x coordinate and y coordinate we have, but now the x coordinate of the x-axis we will get the negative. So the sign convention for the second quadrant is that the negative and the positive, because what is positive is the y quadrant and here is the positive y quadrant. Similarly in the third quadrant, that is both the axis, both the negative number of the axis are present. So if the quadrant or if the coordinates having both the negative value, then the point or the space or that exact space is present in the third quadrant. Now we move towards the fourth quadrant. In the fourth quadrant, if the x coordinate and the y coordinate is positive and y coordinate is negative, then the point must lie in the fourth quadrant, because here is the x coordinate which is the positive and here is the y coordinate which are the negative. So sign convention for the first, second and the third and the fourth quadrant may be, for example, in the first both the coordinates should be positive, in the third both the coordinates will be negative, and in the second the x coordinate will be the positive, negative, and the y coordinate will be the positive. In the fourth quadrant the x coordinate will be positive and y coordinate will be the negative. Now let's understand that the first and the third. What is the first and the third? First First, there's a plus plus, there's a third, there's a minus minus. What is the second? There's a minus plus. What is the third, fourth? There's a plus minus. Okay. Now, this is the coordination of the point. Now, let's have some numerical problems. For example, on your textbook, the practice set is given. That is on page number 93. There is a find out these coordinates are given and find out these points are present in which quadrant. Now let's have the first coordinate or the first point. That is the first point of the coordinates of 5 and 3. That the x coordinate is a 5 and y coordinate is a 3. Now where is the x coordinate? That's both are the plus and plus. Both coordinates are plus. So this point is definitely lies in the first quadrant. No, first quadrant. Okay. So this is the first quadrant. Now locate the point. That's the y coordinate. That's the 5. This is the 5 and y coordinate. That is 3. That is 3. This point must be present here. Okay. Now second, that's minus 2 and the 4. That's the minus 2 is x coordinate and 4 is the y coordinate. Now we have know that the sign convention for the second quadrant is what? Sign convention for the second quadrant is the minus plus. So this is our minus 2 and minus 4. What is the minus 2 of the x coordinate? Here is the minus 2 of the x coordinate. What is the 4 of the y coordinate? It is the 4 of the y coordinate. Therefore minus 2 and the 4. Here is the point. This point lies in which quadrant? That is the second quadrant. So this point is lies in a second quadrant. If you practice well, then you don't need to find out the problem, or you don't need to find out the point. You just identify the quadrant just by saying the sign convention or by just look at the sign of the coordinates. Now what is the third? That is the 2 and the minus 5. Now the third is the coordinates are the 2 and the minus 5. That is the x coordinate is a positive and the y coordinate is the negative. We have seen that the x coordinate is a positive and the y coordinate is a negative. Sorry, x coordinate is a positive and y coordinate is a negative. This is the sign convention for the fourth quadrant. Now look at this. Y, there is a 2 and y, that is x is equal to 2 and this y is equal to minus. There is the point. Now this is the fourth quadrant. Now the similarly, that is 0 and 4. Now what is the 0 and the 4? That is the 0. That is, this 0 is nothing but the x-axis. That is 0. This is the point should be lie on this line. Now y coordinate is given. That is 4. That's why this point lies on the 4. For example, when the coordinate means any coordinate of the x-axis or the y-axis given as a 0, then it is definitely that point is lie on one of the line. It may be lie on the x-axis or it may be lie on the y-axis. Here the point is given that the 0, 4 means the x coordinate of this point is 0, means x coordinate of this point is 0 and the y coordinate is 4. So whenever the any coordinate of the point is given as 0, then that point definitely lie on whether the x-axis or whether the y-axis. So the next, that is the fourth. Fourth is that the minus 3 and 0. Look at this. Now this is the minus 3 and 0. As I have said that if the 0 is the one of the coordinate, then this point must lie on the x-axis or the y-axis. But here is the 0. 0 what? That is the y coordinate. So this point should lie on the x-axis. That's the y coordinate is 0. The y is minus 3. So this is the point. Okay. When the one of the coordinate is given as a 0, then the point should be lie on the x-axis or the y-axis. Present on the which coordinate is given 0. Now the coordinates is minus 2. That's the minus 2.5. That both are the negative. So the sixth point on the page number 93 is present on the third quadrant. Okay. Now the 5 and 3.5, that's both are positive, so it must lie on the first quadrant. That's the minus 3.5 and 1.5. That the first is x coordinate is a negative, so x coordinate is a negative. X coordinate is negative and the second y coordinate is positive, so the quadrant is second quadrant. So just look at the signs of the coordinates. The quadrant must be decided, and you can just looking at the sign of the coordinates, you can imagine whether the point located in which quadrant. This is the second quadrant. There is a minus and the plus sign convention. Okay. Now there is some important facts that is you have to remember. That is a if the y coordinate of every point on the x-axis is 0. For example, I have said earlier that if the any coordinate of the point is 0, then this point must be lie either on the x-axis or whether on the y-axis. Means here is the on the page number 96 one statement given that the coordinates of every point on the y-axis on the x-axis is 0. Means the y coordinate of the every point on the x-axis is 0. Means if the any point means 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or the -1, -2, -3, any point which is present on this x-axis, the y coordinate of this point is the 0. And similarly, every point whose y coordinate is every point which is lying on the y-axis, its x coordinate is 0. म्हणजेच point x-axis वर असला त्याचा y coordinate 0 आहे आणि जर point हा y-axis वर असला म्हणजेच त्याचा x coordinate काय तर 0 आहे. Because this x-axis passes through the or the cuts the x-axis, y-axis cuts the x-axis at the origin, that's the 0. Okay. The coordinate of every point on the y-axis, the x coordinate means the x coordinate of the every point on the y-axis is 0, and conversely the every point whose x coordinate 0 is on the y-axis. That is and so we can get that the equation of the x-axis is y is equal to 0 and the x-axis is y is equal to 0 and the equation of the y-axis is x is equal to 0. This is because that's the x-axis equation. And so what is the equation of the x-axis? And then now let's look at the first, that's the equation of the x-axis. What is the equation of the x-axis? That is the y coordinate is must be 0. Means the y coordinate of the any point which is 0, then it must be lie on the x-axis, and that's why the equation of the x-axis is equal to y is equal to 0. Now y-axis. Now this is the y-axis. If any point is present on the y-axis, then the coordinate of the x-axis of that point is automatically get 0, and that's why the x-axis equation, that's why the equation of the y-axis is nothing but the x is equal to 0. Means equation of the y-axis means what? When the x coordinate is 0 means the x is equal to 0, and the equation of the x-axis is what? That's y is equal to 0. So equation of the x-axis is equal to y is equal to 0, and equation of the y-axis is equal to x is equal to 0. So we have seen that that's first of all coordinate geometry. The coordinate geometry is used to find out the exact place or the exact point. Now just have a quick recall. That's a coordinate geometry. That's it. It's having the two axes, that's the x-axis and the y-axis. Then the origin. That if you have to find the point that the 0, 0. If you have given this two coordinates, then where is this point? This point lies at the center where the x-axis and y-axis perpendicular to each other and cuts at the point 0, 0. This is the coordination. This is the coordinate of the point, that's the 0 and the 0. This is the origin. Okay. Now let's that's the quadrant. What is the quadrant? The part make the four parts which made by the x-axis and the y-axis of the single plane. Means x-axis and the y-axis cuts the single plane in the four parts. This is nothing but the quadrant 1, 2, 3 and the 4. Now every quadrants have the special sign convention. Means the point, if the point is lies in the first quadrant, then its x coordinate and its y coordinate both are positive. If the point lies in the third quadrant, then its x-axis coordinate and the y-axis coordinate both are negative. If the point lies in the second quadrant, then its x coordinate becomes the negative and the y coordinate becomes the positive. At the fourth quadrant, if the point is present in the fourth quadrant, then its x coordinate becomes the positive and the y coordinates becomes the negative. So by seeing only the signs of the point, or this is the coordinates of the points, or this is the coordinates points. Okay, you can simply say that which this point is present in the which quadrant. That's the 5 and 3. That's present in the first quadrant. The -2 and the 4 present in the second quadrant. 2 and the -5 present in the fourth quadrant. 0 and the -0 and the 4 present on the y-axis because the x coordinate is the 0. Okay.